We're about ready to get started on our 3Believe introduction webinar. This is Jason Whitney. Appreciate that you're here. We're going to go over some great material, some great content, some stuff that you've never actually heard, and some stuff that you already knew was important. And we're going to go over a lot of stuff. So we're going to get started here in any minute, seeing that some more people have come on. Appreciate your time. I know your time is valuable. I've really put a lot of work into making sure that this is accurate, that is informative, and that it's not my opinion. It's true that I'm going to tell you some more of my personal story. That's my opinion, but it's based on fact. But as far as the scientific stuff goes, it's hardcore, absolutely the science and no exaggeration. So some of the stuff is cutting edge, brand new, never seen before, never heard before. So it'll be good. More of you are coming on, and appreciate your time. We started 10 years ago in serving just doctors and clinics with how to overcome the chronic diseases and metabolic syndrome, things like obesity and heart disease and diabetes, things like that. And we go around the country and we set up clinics inside the doctor's office on how to be a holistic solution instead of medications. That's what we've done for 10 years. And we actually have some technology of making some yummy foods to make it really, really easy to be able to go on a diet that's not like a diet. You don't feel like you're on a diet. It doesn't taste like you're on a diet. And we're not gonna go over those foods tonight. We're gonna talk about my story and why you want to hear my story. So we're about ready to get started. I think it's just slightly after 7 o'clock. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. It's gonna go away from me and it's gonna go right to the slideshow, and then I'll come back on at the end of the program. So welcome again. I appreciate everyone that's here. If you're here for the first time, you were sent by a friend. You were sent by an associate. You were sent by a family member. The reason why you were sent here is because they care about you. They love you. This is some information that you have to hear. Now, I'm just gonna suggest and recommend that I think that you actually want to hear my story. And the reason why you want to hear my story is because you don't want to die a horrible death. Now, that's not the penalty of not hearing my story. The reason why is none of us want to die, even though we all know we will die someday, but we really don't want to have a painful death, do we? That's why I think that you want to hear my story. The truth is, you're more like me than you may think, even though you don't know me, because I'm not famous. I'm not politically powerful. I don't have my own reality show. That's not the reason that you want to hear my story. I believe that you want to hear my story because at the very least, and even though we're not twins, okay, we're not exactly the same, what I'm saying is that at the very least, we're 80% the same. You're just like me, 80% of you. In that, we share some of the health issues that I used to have, but I don't have anymore. And the studies prove that I'm right. Now, let me explain. Here, these studies are based on the CDC. That's the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, okay? And all of this material is based on solid studies. So most everybody on this call is a little bit afraid of death, and so am I. We just don't want to be there when it happens, right? We don't like pain. And in fact, we'll do almost anything to avoid it. We don't want pain more than we want to get pleasure. That's been proven over and over again. That's how strong our drive to avoid pain is. It's just one of those strange, interesting things about us crazy humans. I'm just saying that since we live here in America, we eat the foods that we're exposed to. And it's basically all the same for all of us. Now, I may love sauerkraut and you may hate broccoli, but if you boil it all down, we eat the same basic types of food. No matter what we eat, it can be put into one of three categories. That is carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. Some foods will only have one or two of those elements, like this chicken will have no carbs, but it has protein and fats. Unless, of course, if you go to Kentucky Fried Chicken, you know, and you put it in the batter and you deep fry it. Well, there's carbs in that batter. All right. So other foods, right, will have all three, like the famous pizza. We've got carbs in the crust. We have fats in the meat and in the cheese and the protein. And we have some of all three. And the foods that we all eat come from the same place. Now, I know that there are some exceptions, but I mean, as an industry as a whole, the food industry as a whole, now I know the foods you eat and the foods I eat is made by different companies, but they are processed by the same methods. And that means that they're essentially come from the same factory as far as the process is concerned. Okay. Now I'm just going to make sure here that we have a sound check, just making sure. I've got sound here. I've got, let me just close this here for no interference. Can anyone, if you're online and you're on your tab, can you just send me a little text if you can hear me or you can see me? Anyone, can you see? Can you see the slideshow here, the slideshow? Everything on my side says we got strong signal and everything is being recorded. All right.
Type in. Like, can you hear or see me?
Can you hear me or see me? All right. I did nothing typed up.
That's right there.
Oh, there's okay. All right. So I'm just waiting to see if anybody can respond. And before I go too much further, what I'm talking about in the food processing is because our food is so commercialized and so we don't grow our own foods anymore. They come from the factories. They come from overseas or they come from other countries, right? And so they're all processed to make them cost effective and to make them available to us in every part of the country. They have to be processed. And so that is part of the challenge that you get when you are, well, in a country like ours, a big country with a lot of people, right? So what I'm saying is that they're all processed about the same way. And because of that, they're all made the same way. Now, this is not a story about how polluted our food is and how there is a conspiracy to take our money and poison our food supply. I'm not going to show you any video footage of going undercover into a chicken farm. Okay. What I'm telling you is that if we broke down the amount of fat and the amount of protein and the amount of carbohydrates that Americans eat on a daily basis, it'll be what you see there. A study done by the CDC shows that out of all our diet, all the calories we get in a day, 51% of all those calories will come from carbohydrates. 16% of all those calories will come from protein, and 34% of all those calories will come from fat. Now, and the reality is that out of the choices of the foods that you and I make, that is why 80% of everybody on this call has the same health issue. We all share the same one because essentially we eat the same foods. Now, I will admit now I don't eat these ratios that the rest of America eats. Mine are different, but I used to. And the reason why I don't is because I had to change them in order to stop my chronic diseases that I had. the secrets that I found told me that that is not about how many calories we eat. It's the ratio of where you're getting those calories from out of the three groups. And that is called macro balancing your foods, right? To prove my point about the number of calories, and they really don't matter, and your body can't count. A study done in 2011 found that the average American an average man eats 2,526 calories a day, and they burn 3,105 calories a day on average. Now, this is the average American man. That is a negative calorie burn rate of 579 calories a day. Now, based on those numbers, you and I, eating 2,500 calories in and burning 3,100 calories out, we should be able to burn 1 pound of fat every 6.6 days. The type of calorie, the calories that we are having, it really matters, because in America, we're not burning. The average man is not burning or a pound of fat every 6.5 days. They're gaining weight. So how is that happening? So it's kind of like this. It's kind of like if your job, you're paid $2,526 a month. I'm using money instead of calories. The numbers are the same, but you spent 3,105 calories a month. Okay, so you're spending more than you're getting. You would be at a $579 negative deficit every month. Now, how long would it take for you to go bankrupt? Do you hear news reports about epidemic people losing too much weight? Are there government programs that are handing food out because men and women are getting too skinny? No, we're not hearing that, because that's not what our problem is. Now, you've heard the saying, if you do what you've always done, you will get what you've always gotten, right? In a lot of ways, that's very true. Yeah, well, your body doesn't know that saying. Now, I learned that by reading 600 studies, that if I keep eating the way that I was eating, the same way that you're eating, I won't stay the same as I was. I'll get worse. I'll get sicker and sicker and get more chronic disease. And that's what will happen to all of us if we continue to do what we've been doing. And that's exactly what the studies of our nation are showing. We didn't used to have the issues that we have now. We didn't used to have heart disease and high blood pressure and cholesterol and medications and depression and gut issues and weight issues. We didn't used to have any of these issues 30 and 40 years ago. So it's proof that we're getting worse, and it's getting it's called an epidemic. It's getting worse all the time. So the same fate will fall on us if we continue to do what we want, unless you apply the 3 secrets that I learned in reading 600 clinical studies. Let me give you some more reasons of why you and I are almost exactly the same. I was almost morbidly obese. Now, morbidly obese means I'm 100 pounds over my ideal weight. All right. And my joints hurt all the time. I had a stomach ache all day, every day. I was always having a headache, and I had it all day long. I had no energy. I wanted to take a nap every day at 3:00. I was grumpy and moody. My employees literally would offer to buy me food just to make sure that I was getting fed. I was hyperglycemic, and I was in a terrible mood if I didn't have fun. I had high blood pressure, high cholesterol, my elevated blood sugar levels, they were all too high. So now, can any of you relate to what I'm talking about? Have you had any of these symptoms in any way? And so if you are, well, that's why I keep on saying that we're more alike than you may think. And you want to hear my story. You want to hear the story how I don't have those symptoms, those issues anymore, because I know you're just like me and you don't want to die a horrible death. All right. So The three secrets makes all of this go away, because the three secrets, I overcame my issues. And since we're all the same, so can you. Now, according to the CDC, 80% of you have at least one chronic disease. And unless you hear what you and I both hear and implement the three secrets, we're going to get more of them. Now, my wife has begged me not to be so macabre and use the words horrible death. She says it makes it sound so serious. But listen why I felt I had to use those words. I know that I had to get your attention. And later, I think you'll even thank me for being so direct and even so serious. So here's the three secrets. I won't keep you in suspense anymore. The first one, your microbiome and how to grow it. 2, how to fix your pancreas and your liver, 2 major organs. And 3, intermittent fasting and how to do it successfully for immediate results. Those are the 3 secrets. Now there's other secrets inside of those, but those are the 3 kingpin secrets. So let me tell you what, I know what you're thinking. What in the world is microbiome? And why do I care? The reason why you care is because microbiome, as reported, is the biggest scientific breakthrough in the last 100 years. That's what they're saying about the new stuff that they just found out about the microbiomes. This recent studies, and I mean just weeks and months ago, have discovered that every single disease comes out of our microbiome. And because it's broken, every single disease starts in our gut. But don't freak out yet, because it is the same studies that I'm telling you about proved that your microbiome can be corrected and every chronic disease can be completely avoided, which is awesome news, since 85% of all the deaths in the country are caused by chronic disease. But there's a catch, and how to fix it, I will tell you what that catch is. But first, you need to understand what microbiome is. Basically, it's scientific talk for the gut bacteria. For you and me, gut bacteria, not your butt bacteria. Your gut bacteria is called microbiome. And it's the good kind of bacteria that lives in and on our bodies. Now, if you've ever suffered with gut pain, you know how awful it can be and frustrating it can be to have to go to specialists, only for them to give you medication and then have it stop working, if it even worked at all. Once I understood my secret, or the secret, my stomach pain and the problems went away, and they've stayed away. That's after 10 years. It was like magic. I'll talk more about how to grow your microbiome and to stop your chronic issues a little later. The second secret is how to fix your pancreas and your liver, and why they're so important in avoiding chronic disease. Now, part of this secret revolves around your pancreas producing both master hormones. There's only 2 master hormones in your pancreas, and if it's making too much insulin, making it too often, you won't even be able to lose body fat, no matter what you do. These 2 hormones have the power to command every single cell and tell your cells what to do. This secret will show you how you can control these master hormones to get your cells to do what you want them to. Now, I know you're asking, why is Jason telling this to me? Because you care about the benefits that these 2 organs can bring you if they're working right. Because if your liver is running right, or if it's running sluggish, that is one reason why you feel so run down. If your liver is the energy factory, that's the way that you burn off your body fat. Since these organs, or if these organs are not working right, there's going to be big trouble in your body. If you have ever wondered why a diet or program will work and is working for everybody else, and yet it's not working for you, you now know what I'm talking about. You've been frustrated with that. If you've ever thought that you can't lose weight because you're born with big bones, or it's because your genes and there's nothing that you can do about it, if you feel that way, you know how I felt. But knowing these 3 simple secrets will get you the body that you want and the one that you deserve. Whether you're older or whether you're younger, it doesn't matter. They work the same if you use these secrets. Okay, so the third one I'm talking about is intermittent fasting. Now, I'm not talking about starving, and believe it or not, there's an actual science to intermittent fasting. There's a right way to do it where it doesn't turn it into to just fasting, right? What intermittent fasting will do, and this is why I'm so excited about telling you, is that if you've ever failed on a diet, your fat thermostat for the amount of the fat or measures the amount of fat that you're supposed to have. And if you fail on a diet, the amount of fat that your body thinks that it was supposed to have before actually goes up every time you lose weight and then gain weight again. And if you've ever been on a diet and noticed that the extra pounds that keep on creeping, adding up year by year, you know what I'm talking about, right? Even if you're eating like a bird. This is what happened to me. I wasn't eating all that much when I was trying to lose it, and I would continue to gain weight no matter how much I was working out, no matter how much I spent. I practically live in the gym. It wouldn't change. I had to go on special diets and it wouldn't change. I was racked with this torment of wondering why I can't do it. Special diets would not get me back to my college wrestling weight. I was stuck until I learned the 3 secrets. And the 3 secrets are as your biome, your pancreas, your liver, and the intermittent fasting. Now, to tell the truth, inside of each of these secrets, there's several other secrets, and we know them. We know all of them, and I'm willing to share all of them with you. That's just a small taste of what you're going to get. And that's why I say again, you want to hear my story. My story is your story. We actually fish at the same pond, and we have the same the same health issues. We eat the same kinds of food. Our story talks about how I got my health issues, how I found the 3 secrets, and how you can put them into practice and you can have the same results that I did. Okay, so here in this picture, I was 18 years old. I'm here 56 years old, almost 40 years later, and there's not a lot of difference. Well, there's a little bit more hair on one, but as far as my health, I'm in perfect health. All my numbers prove it, and I did it because of the 3 secrets. So let's get started on my story that I think that you want to hear. Back in 2007, I was literally eating my way to the grave. It actually started before that. I know it didn't just happen all at once, but it all came to a head in 2007. And I didn't know it at the time, but at least not at first, but I was headed towards a horrible, painful death. By now, you know what I'm going to say. Since 80% of you are just like me, some of my story is going to sound a bit like yours, all right? At least a part of having the same health problems that I'm going to give you here in just a second. Now, today, I'm a food scientist. I formulate functional foods, and I specialize in teaching doctors and clinics how to make the 3 secrets that I'm going to give you work for their patients. But back in 2007, I was a financial analyst and advisor, and an unhealthy one at that. And so, hello, my name is Jason Whitney. I'm 56 years old, and I like to say I'm 56 years young. So back in 2007, I was 44 years old, and I had several ticking bombs in my body. Just look at my body. Doesn't it look like I have more than just one ticking bomb stuffed inside there? You got stuff, there's plenty of room for several bombs, right? Well, and I had them. And my doctor was about to tell me which ones I had. In this picture, I weighed 280 pounds, which is okay if I was 8 feet 11 inches tall. Now, based on my weight when I was wrestling in college, I would have to be 8 feet 10 inches tall to be at a healthy weight is what I was in college. But since I didn't grow nearly 9 feet tall after college, I was just obese. And being obese wasn't the worst of my problems. I didn't know it at the time, but I had 10 chronic diseases stuffed inside that big body of mine. Now, I wasn't afraid of too many things. I feared death, like most people, and I already told you that. I grew up a pretty rough and tumble kid. My mom, she raised 6 boys by herself, and I was, well, the second to the youngest. And I got the brunt of my older brothers flexing their muscles, which usually meant a bruise or a cut on a daily basis. And I have several scars to prove it, in case you want to, call me out on that. So showing fear was like blood in the water for sharks. I had to appear tougher than I was. My biggest fear about death was really not about dying as much as dying early, before my time. Even though I didn't know how long I was supposed to live, I just didn't want to end up like my mom and my dad. My dad left us when I was 5 and then later died when he was 52 from a heart attack. My mom, she died when I was 13. Cancer took her. She was 44 years old, the same age I was in 2007. Out of all my fears, dying young was by far the biggest. When I was 13, 44 sounded like a million years away. But all of a sudden, here I was at the same age as my mom when she died. Have any of you lost a loved one due to a chronic disease? And when it happens, couldn't you help? Or you couldn't help but think about your own mortality and if you might suffer the same fate. If you have, I want you to pay attention to the 3 secrets, because they could very well save your life, just like those 3 secrets saved mine. Hopefully you're getting a sense of what my feeling was. That was what the things that I was going through, the torment and the challenges that I was going through. That was 12 years ago. I told you how I felt tired all the time. My joints were always sore. I felt weak and out of shape, and I always had a headache, which lasted all day long. The only time I didn't have a stomach ache was immediately after eating for about 30 minutes. Then it just come right back again. Sometimes it was so bad that I was double over in pain. My mom died from cancer of the uterus. Now, I knew I wouldn't have that problem, but could cancer be the reason that I felt so bad and I had all the pain in my stomach? These were the thoughts that were going through my mind. I had 3 daughters and a grandson when I was 44. My daughters never knew my mom. Was that going to be me? Would I not know my own grandchildren? Dying early was terrifying me. Does any of this sound like thoughts and fears that you've had? Thankfully, my terror moved me into action. So I went to my doctor to get a complete physical. Now, wait a minute. That's not my doctor. My doctor looked more like this. So he put me through the ringer when I told him my symptoms. He gave me complete testing, blood test and urine test, a treadmill stress test on my heart. And he even tested how fat I was around my body. And that wasn't a number that I wanted to see, right? I did a prostate test, which I thought was the worst test. Definitely not my favorite. But I would rather do 10 prostate tests than an exam of my bladder by way of my urethra. The word ouch isn't even a big enough word to describe the level of pain you experience with that terrible test. I had the whole gambit of tests done. You know, you really need to receive a medal for going through those kinds of tests. They're painful, expensive, embarrassing. Did I mention that they're painful already? I mean, seriously, after you come out of the torture testing room, the doctor's office needs to cheer, play some motivating music, throw confetti in the air, release balloons, throw a celebration. They need one of those little podiums that you can stand on, and as you bend over and they play the national anthem, they hang a medal around your neck. I think that if doctors did that, people would be a lot more willing to do those kind of tests. don't you think? Anyway, part of me was sure nothing serious was wrong with me. I had spent my whole life trying to be healthy, at least my younger years. I've never tasted alcohol, tobacco, or drugs. From 7th grade to the years after college, I treated my body like a temple. I only ate healthy foods. I didn't drink soda, eat candy, and very few desserts. I did what I thought was a healthy lifestyle. Now, I admit, as I started my professional career as a grown-up, I didn't completely change my lifestyle to an unhealthy one, but I did eat too much. Maybe that came from being poor as a child. Back then, my favorite food was banquet pot pies. Do you remember those? You know, the ones for 50 cents? They never looked that good. And one of my favorites was a triple-decker peanut butter and banana sandwich. Oh, I'm not kidding. Those things weighed like 2 pounds, but they were delicious. And my favorite was this gourmet meal my mom would cook. It was white gravy poured over toast. At least I thought it was gourmet, and it must have been served in the finest gourmet restaurants around the world. So as an adult, when I could afford better food, I ate more of it. And the truth is, I ate more than I needed. Does any of this sound familiar? Let's just say that I didn't get to 280 pounds by turning down seconds and eating lots of salads. I just didn't think my body was in that bad of shape. That part of me was convinced that nothing was wrong. Have you ever tried to tell yourself that you were healthier than you knew that you really were? I saw myself as the old stud that I was in high school and college, but I knew that there had to be something wrong. Well, I was living right in the middle of Denialville, USA. Now, the other part of me, the logical side, was reminding me that I didn't feel well for a reason. And the unhealthy symptoms that I had meant something was going on inside of me. I didn't want my wife to worry, so I didn't let her know how scared I really was. There were many sleepless nights and a lot of private prayers. After the tests were done, I didn't want to go see him. Talk about being torn. I wanted to go just to prove that nothing was wrong, and I didn't want to go because I knew that something had to be wrong. Now, you remember my doctor, Mr. Smiley, not the most polished bedside manner. He just blurted out, well, you got metabolic syndrome and several other chronic diseases. And that was it. It was silent. I waited for him to burst out laughing and say, no, not really. You don't have that terrible disease. You don't want, you don't know, don't you know that that will bring you a terrible, horrible death? Well, he didn't say that. He didn't say anything. I waited and waited. Seemed like an eternity, but nothing. Come on, Doc. Are you really going to force me to ask? Was this it for me? I remember actually asking my doctor, how long do I have to live? I didn't know what metabolic syndrome was, and I didn't know what a chronic disease was. All I know was chronic disease wasn't good. As a matter of fact, have you ever heard someone say, oh, he's chronically handsome? No, chronic means bad. You have to understand where I was coming from. My mother died at 44, the same age I was when I had my testing done. I was just 13 years old. She lived an unhealthy life. So did my father. He was an alcoholic. They both drank heavily, both smoked, red meat and potatoes, lots of white Wonder Bread, and potatoes were served at every meal. Healthy eaters, we were not. My father died of a heart attack, and he had liver failure at 52. That's one of the biggest reasons I refuse to ever let a drop of alcohol, drugs, or smoking touch my lips. Finally, my doctor started talking. But by then, I wasn't really listening. I was experiencing the calm after the storm. I thought, was I going to suffer the same fate as my mother and my father? Is this it? Was I going to die early? Has my worst fear come true? Answering my question of how long I had to live, my doctor just laughed and said, you're not going to die yet. You're just really fat, almost morbidly obese, And then he added, being 90 pounds overweight will do that to you. And then he continued, but this is serious. And let me show you your test results. He said, in this column marked in red is your test results. In this column, the limit, is your maximum level. That's what you're supposed to be. As you can see, your numbers on the left are all over the limit. He said I failed them all. He went on to detail why he was giving me prescriptions for each of my failed tests. He started with my blood sugar. He said, this is the limit here, or the limit here, that I have circled there. That's your number. That's just too high. I have to get those numbers down. This is where you're supposed to be. Take this pill and that'll bring it down. And you failed that one. If we don't get that number under control, you have to start taking shots too. Now remember, I'm a food scientist. Back then, I wasn't. Since then, I've learned the risks that come from taking medications to treat diabetes. You should know some of them. And when I tell you about them, you should be very afraid. But the good news is I'll tell you the secret of how to completely avoid having to take these medications. And these risk factors are the same for cholesterol and blood pressure medications, all of them. He continued to tell me why he needed to give me more medications to bring my blood pressure down to safe levels because I was too high and failed those as well. He continued to talk about my cholesterol and why I needed medication for that. He wouldn't stop. He talked about my total cholesterol and why I needed medication for that. He talked about my HDL and how that was too high. He talked about my triglycerides and that they were way, way too high. He talked about my HDL being so low. That's the only one that was low, but that's supposed to be high. It was a bad joke that someone was that wouldn't stop telling. He pointed out that my triglycerides were so high that people on the space station could see them. A very bad joke. I was hoping that he would run out of bad jokes and bad news to talk about, but then he added the LDL levels and finally ended the bad joke with my ratios being over double what they should be. He said, I hope that you have life insurance. With a ratio that high, no one would insure you. My brother is an insurance agent. That's how I know. He mentioned something about my liver being too fat, but by then I was pretty well overwhelmed. Medically, I had metabolic syndrome and chronic diseases. And sadly, the CDC says that you do too, or at least 80% of you have at least one of them. 80% of the people on this call have at least one chronic disease. And metabolic syndrome is a chronic disease. And can you relate to any of these issues? Do you have any of these symptoms? Then you know that your story is very much like my story. And this is why it's a serious issue. Have you been told that you have any of these? Can you relate to how I felt? Maybe you're okay with having these health risks and taking medications. And I should tell you, you should not be okay with it just because you're taking a medication, because with them comes terrible side effects as well. But for me, it was scary and a major kick to my ego. Have you ever needed a change in your luck? Well, that's exactly what I felt I needed. Before he left, he asked me if I needed anything for my digestive issues. He wanted to give me more medication. And if he asked me, if you're feeling a little depressed, can I give you something for that? All I could say was, no, thanks. I'm good. I took the prescriptions from the doctor, but I never had them filled. I couldn't. I was a superstar athlete. I felt like athletes don't take medications. Of course, that was my ego talking, but that's what I felt. Because, you see, I held 5 state wrestling titles. I was all state in football. I was even an All-American. And then, on top of that, I was a world champion wrestler. And world champion wrestlers definitely don't take medications. I still had my singlet, my headgear hidden away somewhere, even though I could never get it past just one leg. But I knew that there was still an athlete inside of me somewhere, hidden in all the extra layers of fat in those prescriptions. And my old athletic ego and pride just wouldn't let me take the medications. Have you ever felt like the world had its foot on your neck? But if you just had one good stroke of luck, you could still make it? If you can believe it, I was actually a little offended that the doctor would think that an ex-stud like me would allow medications to be the answer. I had a big ego, I guess. So I went from world champion wrestler to champion eater. It was hard to swallow. So I did what athletes do. I started to work out. I started to watch my diet, the best that I knew how anyway. If anyone knows how to get in shape and lose weight, it's a wrestler. And I did lose weight, whopping 10 pounds or so, and then it just stopped. Have you ever felt like the weight gods had it out for you? You starve, work out for weeks and weeks to lose a lousy couple of pounds. It just doesn't seem fair. My attempts didn't work because I didn't know the 3 secrets. You won't suffer that kind of fate because you will know what I do now. I promise your body does not hate you. Your genes and your DNA didn't hand you a bad hand. These 3 secrets will change everything for you. But before I knew the 3 secrets, nothing would work. I did all my old tricks. They were useless. I needed to innovate. I wasn't succeeding. Then something interesting happened. My discouragement and shame turned into compassion. I thought, now I've been really, truly blessed to have the athletic career that I did. The lessons that I learned, the determination and discipline that an athlete learns and is forged into them. I thought that most people don't get that kind of athletic training that I did. And if I can't even succeed in losing weight and overcoming these chronic issues with all that I've been blessed and given, what chance does someone else have to being successful that has not had the chances that I've had, that I've been blessed with? And that's when it hit me. It nearly knocked me down. I thought, with all the scientists and researchers in the world, someone had to have found the answers and for me and millions of other people, the answers that people were looking for. That was my epiphany. That was this exact moment that changed the course of my life. That epiphany drove me to spend the next 18 months of my life to discover and then bring you the 3 biggest secrets that will change your life and perhaps even save your life like it did mine. I read over 600 clinical studies on what causes metabolic syndrome and other chronic diseases and how to reverse it. I literally read 12 hours a day, 6.5 days a week. Had to go to church, right? My investment of over 6,000 hours paid off. I was rewarded with answers. I discovered the secrets of how to literally choose if you're going to be a victim of chronic disease or to enjoy awesome health. Remember the studies that they've come out with. That is, every single chronic disease comes out of your gut. And if you catch it soon enough, every one of them can be reversed. That's the cutting edge, the most recent research that's coming out. Discovering the answers is one thing. Proving them to actually work, well, that was a whole different matter. How many times have you seen something that looked perfect on paper, but when you put it into real life, it wasn't so perfect? I knew what I had to do. I had to test it on myself. After I read the studies and put all the breakthrough science together on a huge Excel spreadsheet, the answers and the path just popped out at me. They just revealed themselves. From there, I put the right kinds of foods together, ate at the times the studies told me to, and the things started to happen almost immediately. I'm not joking. I could feel a little difference in the first day. Now, I'm not telling you I lost 10 pounds in one day, but the way I felt was different. I felt better. My headache and my stomach pain was the first thing that I noticed. For those of you that know that pain on a daily basis, you know that that's a big deal. In 12 weeks, I lost 70 pounds. Boom, just like that. No starving. It really wasn't even that hard. I wish I could tell you a fantastic story, how my iron forged determination and strong will powered me to the victory line. But the truth is, I didn't have to use an ounce of athletic determination or iron persistence to be successful. I just gave my body what it needed, and it really did the rest. And that this was important. Remember what my epiphany was? I thought that if most people don't get the kind of athletic training that I did, and if I can't succeed in losing weight and being healthy with all that I've been given, what chance does someone else have to succeed that has not had what I was blessed with? My doctor, when I went back, he couldn't believe it. He actually took back the prescriptions and said, you don't need them anymore. He just said, just keep on doing what you're doing. And then he asked, what are you doing? I told him, and he just looked at me. Do you know that look when you tell your kids that they can't really cool off the entire house by leaving the refrigerator door open? Yeah, that kind of look is what he gave me. He had never heard of these studies or the information that I had read. And I thought, why not? If anybody should know, it should be our doctors. They should be shouting it at the rooftops. And that's when I learned what was when I learned that the most important thing for our community should be taught and spread in our medical community. But they had no clue of these secrets. That's just something. It's not that they're bad doctors. It's not that they don't care. It's not that they don't know these issues. It's just our doctors are too busy seeing patients every day, all day, that they don't have time to read 12 hours a day and see their patients on top of that. Doctors are taught to medicate chronic disease. And everybody knows that drugs don't offer a cure. It's only a treatment. And that's when I had my second epiphany. The information I had really, that I had read were really secrets. They definitely were not well known. And that's when I knew that they shouldn't be secrets anymore. People need to know about this stuff. I kept studying, and I learned that 3 people die every minute from metabolic syndrome and chronic disease, or even more die from chronic disease. And 85% of all the deaths in the country come from a chronic disease. And the studies say that they can all be averted if we fix the gut. So I stopped being a financial analyst and advisor, and I changed my path to become a food scientist and a formulator. And I dedicated my life to helping people overcome chronic disease, including metabolic syndrome. I tell you my story not to impress you, but to impress upon you that I have been there. I have faced some of the fears and the challenges that you have and that you're facing now. I found my way back out, and so can you. You don't have to read what I read. I'll just give it to you. You don't have to change your career. I'll give you all the benefits of having your own private researcher, having your own personal food scientist and formulator. I'll be there. All you have to do is take these 3 secrets and plug them into your life. You can see the same results that I have and that thousands of other people across the country that have taken these secrets and through the doctor's offices that we've coached and apply them in your life. That's my story of how I got several life-threatening chronic diseases, and now I have none of them. Americans are sick with a chronic disease. The CDC says it's an epidemic. They say that it's going out of control. The good news is that it's absolutely 100% preventable. The bad news is that it's growing faster than it's being cured. But it's not because it doesn't work. It's because people don't know the secret. They don't know what to do. I went from almost morbidly obese, over 10 chronic diseases, to 56 years young. I look younger, feel younger. I am younger. I am now not too far away from where I was when I was in college. That's what 197 looks like at 56 years old. You know what my issues were every single day. Can you relate to any of them? Now, simply, what is a chronic disease? Because I didn't know at 44 and my doctor told me about it. It's a life-threatening condition that lasts for more than 3 months. That's what a chronic disease is. And so chronic diseases are not things that are so obvious. Sometimes you can't see them. There are things like diabetes and asthma, COPD, depression, and heart disease. All of those are things that you don't see, and yet they're still a chronic disease. There is a long list of chronic diseases listed here. I know the type is so small, but this is just one very short list of chronic diseases that can be completely managed. 85% of those that are over 65 have at least one chronic disease. 80% that are under 65 have at least one. I was a world champion, and I was one of the 85%, and I changed my ways. I changed it back in just 12 weeks with no wrestling practice, I might add, thank goodness. Chronic diseases are too expensive. It'll cost you 5 times more money compared to someone that does not have a chronic disease. Chronic disease is the absolute number one cause of bankruptcies in our country. It's not failed businesses. 25% of the population have some type of activity restriction. When I was in high school, I was a high school student, and I held the state record for the bench press at 465 pounds. When I was 44, I couldn't even do a pull-up. I dropped down to a terrible health condition. I couldn't tie my shoes. That wasn't easy. Sit-ups was a joke. I'd have to roll out of bed. Jogging was a distant memory. If I dropped things down on the ground, like this picture, if any of you can relate, I just let it sit there. It was not worth bending over and just picking it up. Okay? 3 out of the 4 deaths that happen in this country is because of a chronic disease. They don't have to be your future. The number one reason we have chronic disease is because our microbiome is out of control. It's completely fixable. It's the number one health complaint by patients. Over 50% of people have some stomach issue on a day-to-day basis. And only 47% of the nutrients that you eat are absorbed because your biome is out. That's the bacteria on and in your body. And it's very, very important. If you counted up all the cells of our body and all the microbiome of our body, we have 10 times more microbiome than we do human cells. That is not, we almost like we have a companion that's not human, and yet it makes us who we are. Every disease that we have comes out of our gut. We can stop it in our gut. So if we are so heavily populated by these bacteria, it defines who we are. Shouldn't that be what we should focus on to overcome all of these issues? There are studies being done right now. They're finding that they are able to reverse the issues that are on this chart if they're caught soon enough. Things like Parkinson's disease, depression, ADHD in young children. It happens to all of us, but it doesn't have to be. It's really now a matter of choice. So how to overcome chronic disease? We deal with our microbiome, balance our pancreas and our liver. Now, this is a video that I'm showing for the first time. This is part of the cutting edge science that I was telling you about. This is a video that shows a microbiome cell in our body actually communicating with our brain. These are just still shots. They actually show by their colored images here, if it actually communicating back with our brain by the light, the area being lit up. That has never been seen before. You're one of the first in the world to actually see that captured on film. Your body is filled with biomes. We just need to make sure that you have the right ones because they do deplete. I overcame my numbers in just 12 weeks. Was able to normalize them so that I didn't have those symptoms anymore. You can do that by a simple test. Testing your cholesterol, your triglycerides, your glucose levels, checking your cardiovascular and your biome. It can all be done right there in your home. No doctor office is required. We can send you the test and you can deal with it there. You know now how we got it. We got it from eating the foods that we were suggested to eat and the ratios of our foods. We're not going to talk about eating obscure things that you've never had before. We're talking about changing the ratio of those foods, eating plentiful, and changing your biome in your stomach. That's how you got it. That's how we fix it. The secret is the 3 secrets that we've already talked about. And 3Believe is here to provide them for you. For the first time ever, the science is made available to be able to give you the success that you want. On average, our clients averages 5.2 pounds of fat loss a week, 12 inches lost the first month, 66% improvement in your biomarkers, things like body fat and blood pressure and cholesterol and biome. 82% of the people completely either eliminate their medication or reduce it in the first 90 days. 100% report some type of improvement. It's a guaranteed success that you'll feel something. It's a very simple plan, not a books that you have to read, not some boring diet that you have to weigh things out. It's none of that. The cost of your health should be determined by how well you want to feel. Currently, the most popular diets that are out there are costing, on average, a survey done found that to lose 30 pounds of weight, the zone diet would cost you $150.81 per pound. So if the person goes to lose 30 pounds, it would cost them $151.81 for every pound. Multiply that by 30. That's an expensive diet. Jenny Craig is 95. Weight Watchers is 50. Nutrisystems is 40. And we're just barely over $10 per pound of fat loss. Much, much cheaper than any of the other product out there. So you've learned what a chronic disease is. You learned how you got it and how 3Believe can work for you, how it can overcome those things. So I'm going to ask you permission. May I give you an offer? Something that we've put together just for you on this, a special offer. Okay. To check your test biome, it used to, this cutting edge science used to cost $5,000. Now the price has come down to $1,997. In my offer, I want to include that, but that's not what you're going to pay. We're going to provide intuitive coaching. That's another $1,995. We eat for reasons that are sometimes unknown to us. We help uncover what those are. So far we're at $3,900 for a regular price. This is what we charge our doctor clinics when we're selling directly to the doctors. A meal replacement program will actually provide the food for you for 1 month, a $735 value. So far you've got $1,997 for the testing. You've got $1,997 for the intuitive eating. You've got $735 for the actual food. We're going to give you an enzyme and probiotic plan to boost up that microbiome. I told you that would show you how to be able to do that. That's $825. Then a personal probiotic plan. We got to make sure that we feed that bacteria. That's what probiotics do. And then we give you a personalized food list. The biome test will tell us what foods your body's supposed to work. If you've ever felt like your body was unique, you were different than other people, you're exactly correct. It's exactly the case. But how do you know what program you're supposed to be on unless you have a test that is clinically proven to be accurate in telling you who you are from the inside out? That's what the biome test does. It tells you what foods you're supposed to be eating, which ones are your best foods and which ones you should avoid. We'll provide that list for you at $325 value. Your personal food kill list. There's going to be some foods you're not supposed to eat. We'll provide that for you too. So we've got the testing to know what kind of foods you're supposed to have, what diet program you're supposed to follow. We'll give you intuitive coaching. We'll give you the food. Remember, you got to have something to eat so you don't mess up on the wrong kind of foods. We'll provide that. The enzymes or probiotics, what foods you're supposed to eat and what foods you're not supposed to eat, but we're not done yet. We'd be selling this to a doctor clinic. We've been doing this for 10 years, and they charge $6,629 for this. But it keeps going. We'll provide you with a bio kit. That's a scale that'll tell you how much fat, how much water, how much muscle you have in your body. Because we don't want you to lose muscle mass. We don't want you to lose water. Those are fad diets. And the blood test. We got to know what your cholesterol levels and your glucose levels are. That's $850 value. Your personal consultational evaluation. I'm going to admit, sometimes out there in the world, not everybody goes out and becomes a food scientist or a doctor. So they don't know how to read these tests. We will provide an explanation of what all those results mean. That's a $350 value. We'll include that. We'll provide training videos so that on a weekly basis, you get this information. You'll know exactly what to do in case you have any questions. All of this totals $8,265, which doctor's offices were charging, but you will not pay that. But we're not done. We're going to provide some bonuses. We're going to give you some flavor extracts. So you have variety in your food every day. We're going to give you electrolytes so that you have your right amount of trace minerals and sodiums, and so you keep those levels up high. We give you an oil pump because we're going to give you some omega oils so it's easy to dispense it. We're going to give you a shaker bottle so you can take it to work or out on the road and you'll have your meal always with you. We're going to give you a measuring tape, a special measuring tape, so one person can measure your body. You don't have to call your neighbor or have someone else come do it. We'll throw that in. And then sweetener, because all the other sweeteners out there we found either will not contribute to your weight loss or your glycemic level, or they taste terrible. And so we'll include that. And then we'll include blockers that will block unwanted carbohydrates when you don't want high ones, or unwanted unhealthy fats. That total bonus package is $176. Total value of what the doctors would charge their patients, $8,441. And it was worth it. We did that for 10 years. People were buying that through their doctor offices. You will not pay that. Through the offer that I'd like to present to you is that all of this $8,441 is $797, less than a tenth of what the doctors charge to their patients. So if we have two special offers, that's the first one. That's the best because it offers the gut. We have a second offer that is less in the event that you're not ready or you're not able to go that far. The areas that are marked out there are the areas that you won't provide. Still a great value. We provide still a bonus package, a value of $4,380 that doctors were charging their patients. You can get for $395. You can get the $797 for the complete test, which is what I recommend, or you can get the $397. You're paying more than that. It's less than at $397. You're paying less than what you pay for a meal, less than $5 a meal, or actually $3.50 a meal. You pay more than that when you go to McDonald's, for heaven's sakes. You're getting all that other stuff for that price. And so I ask you, if you don't do something now, if you have the symptoms that I've talked about, if you don't do it now, when will you do something? When it's too late? If I left mine alone, they would have got worse. Your body's going to be no different. If you leave them alone, they're only going to get worse. Don't do that to yourself. Here's an easy, simple solution. It's completely 100% backed up, money back guarantee that you'll have the success that we're talking about. We're there to help you. We have a 10-year track record dealing with thousands of patients all across the country with trained physicians. Some of them are PhDs, specialists in treatment of these chronic issues. Here's an opportunity for you to be able to get it at a blockbuster price. Go to the person that invited you to this call. Tell them what plan. Tell them that you want to do the complete plan at $797. They'll make sure that you get that offer and you get the test, everything sent to your home, all the food, all the coaching, and say no to the chronic diseases. Be the success that I had. You can have it too. Remember, it's not willpower. It's not determination. It's just body science. That's all it is. If you put it to practice, it will work. So I appreciate your time. I hope that you learned something, and take your time and go back to the person that invited you to this call. I assure you with a complete guarantee that you'll have success. All you have to do is put it into practice. Now, I'm not going to lie to you and say that it's you can eat ding dongs and what are those desserts that I like so much? Rice Krispie squares. I haven't had one of those in a long time. I love Rice. You can't eat those all day long, is what I'm saying, and then assume that you're going to have success. But I've been at this level of health for 10 years. I still enjoy the things that I want. I just don't eat them all the time. You'll still be able to eat the foods that you love. You just won't eat them all the time, nor will you want them all the time. But isn't your life worth putting a little bit of effort and time in it? Remember, you're spending more on the foods, more than $4 a meal now. You're going to spend less than that on the food. You're going to spend $3.50 a meal. You can't use the excuse that it costs too much. You can't use the excuse that you'll be starving. You can't use the excuse that it doesn't work, that it's not science backed, that you don't have help, you don't have people that are there to offer answers for you. Those are not reasonable excuses. Don't do that to yourself. Say yes. Offer yourself a redemption on your life and on the chronic diseases that will only get worse unless you stop it. So thank you for your time. I appreciate you. I love you. I hope to see you, hear from you again, and I will see you later. Good night.